Okay, I know that's a lot of stuff to talk about at the beginning, but I want to talk about this, what's happening in this Me Too movement and this attack on the comedian. What's his name? Aziz Ansari. Ansari. Okay. Now, look, I know that I make fun about women, and the reason is the teasing women is my life. This is the project of my life. It's my life's work. It's what I'm here to do. But the fact is, I feel women are really ill served and are caught in a double bind. Women, all studies show this. What studies show, and they say, is that women are more conformist than men. But I don't think that's the right way to put it, actually, in my experience of women. It's not that women are more conformist. It is that they are more sensitive to social pressure, that they are more likely to say, this is what's going on. These are the morals of the society I'm in. I will fulfill that role. And men can go off a little bit on their own. And I don't mean, by the way, when I say men, I mean men. I don't mean boys. A lot of people say, well, millennials feel this way. Yeah, let them grow up a little bit and let them become men. And then they'll see that sometimes they're going to break away from what everybody says and they're going to go their own way. I mean, I'm a guy who, every day somebody calls me racist. Every day somebody calls me sexist. Somebody calls me a name. I don't care. I am going to say what I think is true and go the way that I go. That's because I'm a guy. Okay, I'm a man. That is the way men frequently behave, but women tend to want to blend in and be part of the society they're in. So what's the problem? The problem is the only voices that they are likely to hear in the larger society are feminist voices. Why? Because if you're on TV, if you're a woman on TV, what are you not doing? You're not at home. You're not building a home for your family. You're not taking care of your kids. And, when you see a news lady on TV and you just saw her pregnant 2 months ago and now she's back on TV, somebody is being paid to take care of her kids, okay? And because of feminism has shut down anybody who says, well, wait a minute, if you have a kid, maybe you got to take care of them. Kids need their mothers. They need their mothers. They need fathers too, but in a different way. When kids are little, they need mothers. And nobody will say it, right? Because when you say it, especially if it's me, they'll shut you down any way they can. Well, you're a man. You have no right to speak. You're white. You have no right to speak. You're old. You're out of it. You're not the guy. So you never hear that voice. You never are getting pressure, except always, always, always from one side. It's always one side, the feminist side, that you are getting. And anybody who speaks against it will be shut down, even if it's a woman. And if it's a woman who says, hey, I'm taking care of my kids. I'm in my home. I'm building a home for my family so that they have a base to work out of. You're not going to hear from her at all. You're not going to hear from her. She's not going to be on TV. She's not going to be writing. She's going to be doing something important instead of what I'm doing right now, right? She's going to be shaping actual lives and building actual futures and creating an actual home, which is the central role of people in human life. Everything else is just to support that role. So you only are hearing this one side. And I'm not here to tell anybody how to live. I am just saying that if, I see these bumper stickers. The bumper sticker says, good girls don't make history. And I think history is just one long line of people killing each other. That's what, leftists are always saying, you white people, you came in and you took the land away from the indigenous people. Yeah, you know what we interrupted them doing? We interrupted them taking the land away from each other. That's what history is. History is people taking land away from each other, enslaving the people they capture and killing them, and then building their own society. The only thing about the European-based societies is they really work well. So not only do we get to kill everybody, but then we get an iPhone. That's the improvement that we get, because they were killing people before we got here. Now we kill people. Now we actually have a more peaceful society than we've ever had before. So being part of history is not that big a deal. Being on TV may not be that big a deal. These are things that society is constantly telling you that you should do. And one of the things that has happened in our society is that the standard of sexual morality since the 60s has changed so drastically that a woman who goes on a date is basically expected to, especially by the third date, to have sex with the guy she's with. And now we start to see all these women coming out in this Me Too movement who maybe feel like, hey, you know what? That system really so to speak, screwed me. That system did not do that well for me. So now we have this thing with this comedian. Now, I have to be honest. The only thing I know about Aziz Ansari is I listened to a bit of his book, Modern Romance. I didn't find it that entertaining, so I stopped. But I hear he's very funny, and he's a lefty, and he's some kind of brown-skinned person. So he has all the lefty credentials. In fact, let's have a look at him selling feminism on the Letterman show. Here he is putting out his feminist cred on the David Letterman show.
I feel like if you do believe that, if you believe that men and women have equal rights, if someone asks you you're feminist, you have to say yes, because that is how words work. Like, you can't be like, oh, yeah, I'm a doctor that primarily does diseases of the skin. Oh, so you're a dermatologist? Oh, no, that's way too aggressive a word. No, not at all, not at all. Yeah. And this is another test, okay? You're a feminist if you go to a Jay-Z and Beyonce concert and you're not like, I feel like Beyonce should get 23% less money than Jay-Z. Also, I don't think Beyonce should have the right to vote. And why is Beyonce singing and dancing? Shouldn't she make Jay a steak? I'm sure he's very tired after walking and rapping those two songs.
You know, I define myself as an anti-feminist. I am anti-feminist. I am an individualist. I believe everybody should do what they want, but that doesn't mean your choices are right, or that your choices are good for you, or that your choices are going to give you a happy life. And that when you get older and you've been on TV all these years, and your kids are saying, hey, how come you didn't take care of me? Where were you when I was a kid? How come like the nanny was taking care of me? Maybe that's not going to be such a great later life. Maybe you're going to find out that you did something meaningless, talk on TV, when you could have been doing something meaningful, like raising children and fashioning their lives and giving them a mother that is going to stick with them forever until the day they die. So anyway, on a website, I think it was called babe.com, an anonymous woman, I mean, this is insane. An anonymous woman came out and said she had a bad date with this guy, with this comedian. She met him at the Emmys. They texted back and forth. They went out on a date. He took her home. It sounded to me like he was clumsy and overly aggressive. There was some oral sex involved. I'm not going to go into all the details, but ultimately she said, I don't want to do this. He put her in an Uber and sent her home. He sounded very clumsy, he thought one thing was going on. She thought another thing was going on. He has reacted by saying, we went out to dinner, and afterwards we ended up engaging in sexual activity. This is Ansari said this, which by all indications was completely consensual. And the next day I got a text from her saying that although it may have seemed okay, upon further reflection, she felt uncomfortable. It was true. And so he does, he feels bad about it. He says it was true that everything did seem okay to me. So when I heard that it was not the case for her, I was surprised and concerned. I took her words to heart and responded privately after taking the time to process, which she had said. This didn't stop her from coming out anonymously, which is just, one of the most basic rights is to face your accuser, and accusing him of doing all this stuff. So now the left, which sold to women, relentlessly sold this new sexual morality to women, especially feminists. You should be just like men. You have just as much right to sex as men. You have just as right to be unfeeling and have an endless, we shouldn't, because women are more affected by social constructs. That's why you hear women saying, don't slut shame me, don't fat shame me, don't, beauty shame me. You don't hear men saying that. Do I care whether you racist shame me or sexist? No, I don't care. But that's what women are doing. And of course, the thing is, some shame is there for a reason. You feel shame because you treated yourself badly. You feel shame or guilt because you did something wrong. So when you take all those things away, you're just acting in a vacuum without any moral instruction whatsoever, and you're going to make mistakes. So now the left is complaining. Here is Ashley Banfield, the CNN crime reporter, coming out and saying that this woman has set the Me Too movement back.
If you're lucky, there's a really good chance that you're not going to experience the toxic work environment that the rest of us have endured, and that is because of the remarkable progress being made against the Harvey Weinsteins and the Kevin Spaceys of the world. The Me Too movement has righted a lot of wrongs, and it has made your career path much smoother. And here's where I'm guessing it's going to be a long career path. You're 23. What a gift. Yet you looked that gift horse in the mouth and chiseled away at that powerful movement with your public accusation. And I'm going to repeat this because it's important. If you were sexually assaulted, go to the cops. If you were sexually harassed, jeopardizing your work, speak up and speak out loud. But by your own descriptions, that is not what happened. You had an unpleasant date and you did not leave. That is on you.
Finally, somebody said this. I said this several months ago, where I said, you know, if somebody breaks the law, report it to the police. If they violate the rules of their of the place where they work or the club that they belong to, throw them out. If not, slap them and move on. That's on you. And finally, now the left is saying this. But this is another one of these torpedoes that the left has fired at Donald Trump that has turned around and blown up their own ship. And the reason is Donald Trump, they're always accusing people on the right, and especially religious people, of hypocrisy. They don't really know what the word hypocrisy means. They think it means sinning when you think something is sinful. That's not what hypocrisy means. Hypocrisy means preaching one thing and living in a totally different way. Donald Trump hasn't done this. That he was a billionaire who ran beauty pageants and prided himself on sleeping not only with every woman he could get close to, but with other people's wives. I mean, that's so everything we hear about him doesn't touch him, doesn't affect him. Michelle Goldberg over at Knucklehead Row in the New York Times wrote this piece saying, in retrospect, the dynamics of the Clinton-era culture wars seem blissfully simple, pitting a sexually libertarian left against an aggressively prudish right. It is a cosmic irony that 20 years later, it is conservatives who finally killed off the last remaining unspoken rules about presidential sexual ethics. So it's Donald Trump's fault that they've gotten caught with a bad system. It's a bad system. And Heather McDonald, one of the great writers, I say this all the time, she's one of the great reporters in the country. She's over at City Journal, terrific magazine. She wrote this piece at City Journal about policing sexual ethics. And she was on TV explaining some of the things she was talking about, how the left has brought us to this pass where women are exposed.
Men and women have different biological drives. Their libidos are different. And we had a set of norms that restrained the male libido, norms of gentlemanliness and courtesy and chivalry. And we had a default for premarital sex for females that was no. And that gave females the power to say yes, but they didn't have to negotiate with the male libido at every instance of some drunken coupling. Sexual liberation threw that all out and said men and women should go mano a mano on the sexual battlefield. They're equal in their desires, equal in their responses to casual sex. And it turns out when you set the default at yes for premarital sex, a lot of women have a hard time negotiating a no. And instead of recognizing that we've sort of screwed up the default settings and are working against biology, women are blaming the patriarchy when the opposite is the case.
That's it exactly. They're blaming the patriarchy when the opposite is the case. It is feminism that led them to this pretty pass, and feminism that so enwraps them and envelops them that they can't get out of that social order, because there's no one saying what I'm saying to you right now. And let me just finish this off by talking about the fact that women, because of feminism, women are now in a position where they have to rebel against the societal norms. It is natural to women to sort of follow those norms. It is time for women individually to create them. You can't wait for the world to fix itself. You have to fix you. You are responsible for fixing you. You want to live a better life, start treating your body like a woman's body. I'm saying this because I'm an old guy. I've got my woman. I'm not looking for anything. I'm not on the run. I'm not on the prowl. I don't want anything from anybody. I want you to live your best life. That's all I want. I've got no skin in the game. That's what gives me the power to say this. You want to live a better life, start treating your body like a woman's body. The reason there is a price for admission into a woman's body is because the consequences are so high. You get pregnant, you're going to have a choice between having that baby or having an abortion. Either one of those may not work out well. I mean, the baby's going to be a beautiful new person, and that's great. The abortion you're going to live with for the rest of your life. So, that there should be a very, very high price of admission. That price should be commitment, and it shouldn't be because some guy just happens to be excited that day, has happened to have a couple of drinks, happens to want what he wants. You have to make that decision. You have to set up the rules. And if each person does that, if each woman does that, then that will become the social norm. So maybe instead of listening to Megyn Kelly, who has a baby and is back on the air a week later, maybe you should be listening to God. Maybe you should be listening to your pastor. Maybe you should be listening to the wisdom of the ages, which has worked for thousands of years. Maybe you should turn off the TV and consult your own heart.